Have you ever noticed that some people seem almost unbothered by things that would completely unravel everyone else around them? Like they have this quiet steadiness to them, this depth that you can sense but never quite explain. They laugh at the wrong moments, they notice things nobody else catches, and somehow, even when everything is falling apart, they are the ones holding the room together. These people are not just calm by nature, they are carrying something, something heavy, something old, something they rarely talk about. Today, we are going to explore the hidden psychology of people who carry far more than they ever let on. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will see someone in your life completely differently. Let's start with the most obvious thing that is somehow never talked about. The people who have lived through genuinely difficult experiences develop a relationship with reality that most people simply do not have access to. Not because they are special, because they had no choice. Their nervous system was forced to adapt, to recalibrate, to find a way forward when forward looked impossible. And that process leaves a mark, but not always the kind you would expect. Here's the first thing that surprises people. A lot of those who have quietly endured the hardest seasons of their life become extraordinarily compassionate. Not softly compassionate, aggressively, almost inconveniently compassionate. They notice the small stuff, the way your voice drops slightly at the end of a sentence, the way you laugh just a fraction too hard, the way you say you are fine, while every other signal says you are not. They have studied pain so closely, they can read it in other people like a second language. But here is where it gets complicated. That same sensitivity that makes them so perceptive also means they are almost never fully off duty. Their awareness is always running in the background, scanning, assessing, making sure exits are known and people are being read correctly. It is not anxiety exactly. It is a trained vigilance that the body keeps running long after the original threat is gone. The alarm system stays on, even when the house is safe. And yet, these same people often have an almost supernatural ability to adapt. You throw something enormous at them, a sudden change, a loss, an unexpected crisis, and they barely flinch. Not because they do not feel it, because they have learned deep in their bones that they can survive it. That knowing is different from optimism. It is not hoping things will be okay. It is a quiet certainty built from having survived the things that were supposed to break them. Now here is something that tends to confuse the people around them. They will show up for you completely and unconditionally. But the moment you try to show up for them, they disappear behind jokes or deflection or a sudden burst of busyness. Vulnerability is genuinely difficult for them, not because they are cold, but because somewhere along the way, needing people became dangerous. And that lesson gets wired in deep. So they learn to be the helper and never the helped. They learn to be the one everyone else leans on, while they carry their own weight somewhere invisible. This creates a particular kind of loneliness that is almost impossible to describe. Not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who care about you, but still feeling like there is some core part of you that nobody is ever really seeing. They want connection more than most, and they keep it at arm's length more than most at the exact same time. And the humor. We have to talk about the humor. Because people who have been through serious difficulty often develop a comedic sensibility that is sharp, dark, and a little bit shocking. They make jokes about the things that almost destroyed them. And this is not dysfunction. This is genius. When you can find something absurd in your own suffering, you take some of its power away. Humor becomes the smallest, most personal form of resistance. Every laugh is a quiet refusal to be only defined by pain. There is also this fascinating thing they develop around control. They tend to be extremely focused on small, manageable details while remaining surprisingly calm about massive uncertainties. Because they already know that the biggest things in life are largely outside their control. They have tested that theory personally. So the small things, the things they actually can manage, those matter. That is where their energy goes. It makes perfect sense once you understand where it comes from. But underneath all of this, underneath the resilience and the humor and the quiet strength, there is something that rarely gets acknowledged. A grief that has nothing to do with losing people. It is the grief of losing earlier versions of themselves, the self who trusted without hesitation, the self who moved through life without bracing, the self who felt genuinely light. That version of them existed once, or almost existed, and somewhere in the surviving, it got left behind. And that is a loss that is surprisingly hard to explain to someone who has not felt it. This grief does not stop them. It actually deepens them. It is part of what makes them so intentional, so deliberate about who and what they choose to invest in. They know the cost of chaos. They know the value of peace. They have paid for both. So they do not take safe people for granted. They do not take ordinary, beautiful moments for granted either. A quiet evening, a genuine laugh, a friendship that actually holds weight. These things hit differently when you have lived without them. What this all adds up to is a kind of person who is genuinely rare. Not rare because they are perfect. Rare because they chose to keep going when the logic of giving up made complete sense. They reassembled themselves from pieces that no longer fit the same way. They learned to exist inside contradiction. Tough and tender. Hopeful and realistic. Open and protected. And if you know someone like this in your life, someone who carries more than they ever admit, the most powerful thing you can do is not to try and fix them or thank them for their strength. Just stay. Just be the kind of safe, consistent presence they probably never had enough of. Because people who have carried the most deserve someone who finally lets them put it down.